Calculating the amount of rates everyone in the city should pay is a pretty complex task. The City of Kwinana uses land valuation to help calculate the share of rates to be paid by each landowner. Landgate of the state government values the total properties in the City of Kwinana and calls this the gross rental valuation of the city, or GRV. This valuation is reviewed every 3 years. That means from the 1st of July 2020, a new valuation will be used to calculate City of Kwinana rates. Just like any other business, the city has operating costs. These include the cost of labour or jobs, the cost of materials such as light fittings and gardening equipment, and the cost of running programs and events such as the Alcoa Children's Festival or adult learning at one of our community centres. Each year, the city works out how much it will cost to run services and provide support to the community. Once determined, that overall amount has to be divided up by the amount of rateable properties in Kwinana to obtain something called the rate in the dollar. Wherever possible, the city seeks funding from other sources, such as the state or federal governments, to offset the amount of money needed from ratepayers. A simple example of how the rate in the dollar works is this. The city needs $10 million to run programs and services. The total valuation of properties in the city is $2.3 billion. 10 million divided by 2.3 billion is 0.0042, which is also known as the rate in the dollar. The confusing part about the rate in the dollar is that when the overall value of properties drop, the assumption from ratepayers is that they will pay less in rates. This is not the case. For example, if property values drop from 2.3 billion to 1.8 billion, the rate in the dollar would increase, because 10 million divided by only 1.8 billion is equal to 0.0055. This means that the rate of the dollar is higher. Once the rate in the dollar is determined, the city can then calculate the rates to be paid on an individual property, using the following formula: property valuation multiplied by the rate in the dollar. In order to keep the same level of service within our community, the city has to either try to maintain the same budget or to manage a slight increase in overall spending year on year, in line with the cost of business. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been the city's preference to ensure that rates do not rise for the period 2020 to 2021. This may have been straightforward if the GRV was frozen and rates could have been kept at the same amount as the previous year. However, given the state government has moved forward with new valuations, the city has had to readjust calculations to the amount of rates payable for the next financial year. Unfortunately, some properties will now have more rates payable than they did last year. However, a lot more properties will have less payable. As a result of the freeze on overall rates income for 2020 to 2021, the city now faces tough choices with regards to the services it offers. Our preference is to keep people in jobs, and we've been urged to do so by the state and federal governments. Unfortunately, local governments are not eligible for the JobKeeper subsidy. So we'll need to make some tough decisions around how we deliver our services and programs. In some instances, we'll need to reduce our offering of programs and events and open our centres to the public for less hours. Given the current level of uncertainty, the city is not yet in a position to outline exactly how this new normal will look. But much work is going on behind the scenes to ensure that residents are still getting access to the important services and programs they've always been offered. Some councils in WA are in the position of being able to draw down on their cash reserves. The City of Kwinana does not currently have cash reserves it can utilise, as these are allocated to specific activities. All funds coming from the community have been returned to the community through programs and services. We're also not in a position to borrow funds, as we're still servicing loans from major works such as the Kwinana Adventure Playground and Darius Wells Library and Resources Centre. Furthermore, an increase in debt for the city would need to be recouped through an increase in rates down the track, and this is not our preferred position. The city is committed to supporting residents who are facing financial difficulty at any time, not just during the COVID-19 pandemic. we're developing a fair and supportive hardship policy and will work with all ratepayers to determine the best means possible of ensuring they meet their financial obligations.